Hello, my name is Diane, and now that it's December, there's so many different winter and Christmas themed readathons going on, and I tend to not do readathons, almost never, because a lot of the times the prompts don't really align with the things I'm already reading or wanting to read, and I don't really want to make a whole another list of more books to read that I wasn't already planning on just to fit in with the prompts. So instead of doing that, I decided I'm just gonna read a bunch of Christmas themed books. I've never really read many, if any, Christmas books before, and there's a ton of them. So today I'm going to talk about 10 Christmas books that I've read. 3 of them are children's books. 7 of them are just general fiction, either specifically about Christmas or just happen to take place at Christmas. There is one readathon I may end up doing because while there are specific prompts, you don't have to hit all of the prompts. You can kind of just read what you're reading and then see how many points you can make out of that at the end of it. So that may be something I do. That way I can just read the many books that I'm already planning on reading this month and then see how the prompts fit in with my TBR rather than seeing how my TBR fits with the prompts. The first book I read was Christmas for a Kitten by Robin Pulver. This is an illustrated children's book about a kitten who is thrown out into the cold and the snow just before Christmas, and the kitten's just all alone looking for someplace safe and warm to go. It's just looking for a home for Christmas. And I mean, it's a children's book, so obviously it has a happy ending. But it starts out pretty sad, pretty rough. The kitten's so cute. The illustrations are so adorable. And yeah, the kitten finds not the home I expected it to find, but it does eventually find a home for Christmas. The next children's book I read is The Fox and the Star by Coralie Bickford Smith. And this is the illustrator that did the designs for the Penguin Classic editions, and it has that throughout the book, very sort of clean, kind of minimalistic, but also kind of intricate drawings, and I think they're really cool. A lot of the text is in the illustrations rather than just kind of placed next to them like a lot of illustrated books do. And it's about a fox who lives in the forest and is best friends with a star that kind of helps him navigate the dark woods. And one day the star goes missing and the fox has to learn how to navigate the woods without the star and live life after the star's gone. And again, kind of sad, but a children's book, so it has a happy ending. It's very hopeful by the end. Very cute book, very cool illustrations. The third and final children's book I read is The Best Christmas Pageant Ever by Barbara Robinson. And this is about a family of 6 children who everybody thinks they're the worst children in the world. They set things on fire, they smoke cigars, they cheat people out of money. They're just kind of awful. Their parents are not around at all, so no one's really watching them. They're just kind of getting by, doing things, and they find out about the Christmas pageant that's being run. and decide that they want to be a part of it, even though they don't know anything about Christmas. They've never heard the story of Christmas. And they decide they not only want to be involved, but want all of the main parts. So the narrator is the child of the woman who's running the Christmas pageant that year, and just sort of describing the way the mother is handling teaching all of these kids who are typically troublemakers and don't even know what the Christmas pageant's about, teaching them about Christmas, and also hearing their perspective as the first time they've ever heard the Christmas story. They're questioning things that a lot of people don't question, like why did they make Mary sleep in the barn? She's just a pregnant woman who's about to give birth, and they're like, sleep outside, and how ridiculous that seemed to them, and no one really ever questions that. And just trying to teach them about Christmas and hope that the Christmas pageant goes off without any major problems. That book's a lot of fun. There are, I think, 2 other books following these children doing other things. I believe one's about school, them going to school, and I think the other one is Halloween. Maybe next fall I'll read the other ones, but I think that was a fun story, good for kids, but also just if you just want a fun short read. I just think it was a good story, even if you're not a kid. For the general fiction books I read, the first one I read was A Christmas Legacy by Anne Perry, and this was probably my favorite book of the bunch. It's about a woman who used to be a maid for this couple, and she's no longer a maid. She left when she got married, but one of her friend's daughters turns up at her doorstep, really worried and stressed out that she may lose her job and lose everything with it because things have been going missing around her employer's home, and she's worried if she gets blamed for those things going missing, she'll get thrown out, she'll lose her reputation, she won't be able to work again. So our main character goes and fills in for a few days to see if she can figure out what's going on in this house and where these things are going and who's actually responsible. And it starts out sort of like it's going to be more of a mystery solving things, and it is a bit, but it's mostly about her getting to know the people in the house, and I don't want to spoil it, but she figures out why things are going missing, and it has more to do with the family than anything really nefarious going on. And the story overall is just about kindness and how small acts of kindness can make a really big impact in someone else's life. And you get a lot more out of being good than you do out of being selfish and greedy. And it's not too much about Christmas specifically, other than this happens just before Christmas and the woman really wants to get home to her children by Christmas. So she needs to solve this in a fairly timely manner. And I didn't realize when I picked this up, it's a spin-off of another series called Charlotte and Thomas Pitt. And those are the former employers, and I guess he's an inspector, and he and his wife solve crimes together. But I really liked the way this was written. I am planning on reading another Anne Perry this month, and I'll probably go back and check out the other series that this is a spin-off of. The next book I read was Skipping Christmas by John Grisham. This is about a couple whose daughter is going to be away in Peru for Christmas, so they decide this year they're gonna skip Christmas. They're tired of spending just a crazy amount of money and stressing and all the chaos that comes with Christmas in their neighborhood. They're gonna skip it all and just go on a cruise. They're gonna spend half of what they would normally spend on Christmas going on a cruise together and just relaxing and missing all the traditions. And everyone in their neighborhood, they live in a pretty well-off suburban neighborhood, so there's a lot of pressure to participate in getting a tree and having a holiday party and sending out Christmas cards to everyone you know and decorating your house. And most of the people around them are just shocked and can't believe you're not going to do any of these things. You're not going to spend your time or money doing all of these Christmas traditions. And it's a bit of a cynical take on Christmas consumerism, but it's also a really funny book. It's very comical look at it. It's not just dark Scrooge sort of. And by the end of it, it also shows how a lot of people, even among the typical chaos and consumerism, will come together to help each other. And the brighter side of Christmas that's not so based on spending and gifts and things. So that was a lot of fun. And there's also a movie adaptation of this called Christmas with the Cranks. And I liked this enough that I'm planning on watching that at some point this month, probably closer to Christmas. I'm reading a lot of Christmas books, but I'm not quite ready for Christmas movies. Then I read The Christmas Box by Richard Paul Evans. And this is about a young couple who move in with a widow and essentially just help her out with things around the house and keep her company. It's very direct in what it wants you to take out of the story. It's very much about family and appreciating time with people. It's specifically about spending time with your children and enjoying the time you have with them while they're still young. I liked this. I didn't love it, but it's a pretty short read and it wasn't bad at all, but not my favorite. Then I read The Christmas Shoes by Donna Van Leer, and this is based off the song, which I think is also titled The Christmas Shoes. And it's about a man who is a hardworking attorney. He's pretty much devotes all of his time and energy to his work. And he meets this little boy who just wants to buy a pair of shoes for his mom who's dying. Felt a little bit disjointed. It kind of speeds through a lot of the time. It goes through how the attorney meets his wife and starts his family. And it also shows the little boy and his mother. It just sort of jumps around a little bit between characters and in time. But it's primarily about this point in time where this man has kind of neglected his family and his wife and just cares about working and providing things for them, but he's never really providing support and making himself available to them. And this little boy who just wants to buy a pair of shoes for his mom so she can wear them when she leaves him. And how that one little encounter really changes the perspective of the man and kind of flips his whole life around. So this one was also just okay for me. It's certainly not a bad story, but I didn't really connect with it. I think the way that it jumps around wasn't as clear or as smooth as it could have been. But outside of that, it was just okay. Then I read A Christmas Story by Jean Shepherd. This is the book that the movie A Christmas Story is based off of. I feel like that movie's so popular, a lot of people know this story. It's just about this man who's recalling Christmases that he spent with his family as a young boy. Sort of just a collection of all these specific and strange things that they do on Christmas, things that have happened. the gift that he really wanted, the prize that his father won that his mother hated, his little brother. It's not really one big specific plot, it's just a collection of Christmas memories, really. I really liked it. I think it's well written. I've probably seen the movie in bits and pieces over the years, but I don't think I've ever watched it from start to finish, maybe once. So this was my first real hearing the full story from start to finish, and it is really just like a, what is that word? I don't know. What is this word? Montage. And it's just like a montage of things that have happened around Christmas. The next book is The Christmas Bookshop by Jenny Colgan. This is about a woman who gets laid off from her department store job. So she ends up moving in with her sister, who she doesn't exactly get along with, and her 3 children and 1 on the way. And she is living there to help her out, but also takes a job with someone the sister knows who needs help organizing his bookshop. So she goes to the bookshop and finds out that the business is failing. He's not making any money, the man who runs it. And she not only needs to organize it in a way that makes sense to other people and not just to him, but also to try and revive the business so that he doesn't lose it. I liked this, but I expected it to be a lot more about the bookshop specifically. And while we do get to see her organizing the bookshop and learning more about the man who owns it, it's mostly about these 2 men she meets. One of the men is a very popular self-help author, super charming, very attractive. Everybody's obsessed with him, and he ends up befriending the main character. But she also meets this young professor who is pretty much the opposite of this other man. He's also young and charming, but in a very humble way. He's a much milder personality than the self-help author who's kind of just on all the time. So it's a very charming story about not only reviving the bookshop, but also her relationship with all of these people. It's not too romance heavy, but it is definitely kind of a web of both of these men like her, so it's kind of a love triangle, but then each of the men also have another woman who is pursuing them. So it's a little bit messy in the relationship aspect, but I think it's really interesting to look at this woman and her sister kind of coming to terms with one another and who they are, and also learning about this man and his bookshop and his story, and then learning about all these other side characters. So there's a lot of interesting things. It does kind of take the turn from saving a bookshop and getting your life together to romance, and then kind of blends those 2 things together. And the last book I read is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I don't think I've ever actually read this book before now, but I'm very familiar with this story. I grew up going to see this at the theater in my hometown. They do it every year. So most people probably know this, but it's about a man named Scrooge who hates Christmas and cheer and pretty much anything positive. He just works and keeps to himself and really can't be bothered with anyone else. And on Christmas Eve, he's visited by the ghost of his business partner, who tells him he's going to be visited by 3 more spirits that night: the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future. And it really puts into perspective the person he used to be, the person he is, and where that's eventually going to lead him if he doesn't change. And it's very eye-opening experience for him. It completely changes his outlook and the way he treats other people. And the way that it's written is just very thoughtful, but also very funny. Like, I think Scrooge at the end of the book is hilarious. He just is kind of joking, playing some awful tricks on people. And I think his interactions once he's gone through this experience are very comical in a very kind of understated way. So that is it. Those are the 10 Christmas books I've read. Hopefully one of them sounds interesting to you if you are looking for a holiday winter read. I am also planning on reading some Christmas mysteries and Christmas romances this month, which I'm looking forward to the mysteries. I'm really nervous about the romances because that's probably my least read genre, but I am looking forward to getting a bit more out of my comfort zone with reading this month before I go back to my fantasy ways. This has been a fun way to switch things up and try some new authors and new genres that I don't typically gravitate towards. So that's all for me today. I hope you're having a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye.